Kempton to give us an update where he sees the thing.
So, thank you for that, Councillor Wood. So, when I look at what the additional statements have been provided, and I've also looked at the proposed amendment from the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Walker, in effect, it reinforces that this submission that's being proposed on this particular matter is consistent with the position you've taken in the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan. And that's in effect, in summary terms, all that we're saying. And certainly that's what, can we just put the, I know it hasn't been tabled, but I think if I talk about it in its entirety.
Sorry.
Yep. Can we just scroll up to the proposed amendment? So you'll see an amendment in there that's there by Deputy Mayor Holson, Councillor Wayne Walker, approved that the council submission reflect the PORP provisions related specifically to GMO. So that's a statement of fact, and you have to debate that. And then you'll see this additional table of information. You'll see the 3 points. The first point relates to our understanding of a recent Environment Court decision. The second relates to GMO as it's described in the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan. Precautionary approach was agreed, and all you're doing is recommending in this submission that we take a similar position. The only other comment is that you do have a parallel process going through with respect to the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan. It may be that through the independent hearings panel that there's a different set of rules that come about as a result of that process. But we can't keep the two completely linked because we've got different processes in time. The other recommendation I would suggest is that your submission should stand alone. It can acknowledge, well, through staff, we understand what other parts of New Zealand are, the position they're taking on this matter. But I recommend that given Council's position is quite unique through the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan, that you make sure that you stick with that in terms of taking your position. So hopefully that is reasonably clear summary of where you're at. At this stage, you're entirely consistent with your proposed Auckland Unitary Plan position.
So that's on the table now. Councillor Cashmore, would you wish to speak to that?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I see that I actually, somewhat that I moved something, I didn't, but anyway, that's beside the point. So that's talking about the GMO stuff, Mr. Kempton, is that correct?
Correct.
So as far as the submission on the forestry, do we know if that is exactly aligned with our submission to the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan?
Yes, in so much as our concerns around earthworks and where the NES will result in a lower environmental outcome that we currently achieve and that the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan hopes to achieve. Yes, I think we've expressed where we stand.
So my concerns, Mr. Chair, are pretty simple really. Is on the Rural Advisory Panel we have Peter Spencer and Trish Fordyce, who both represent forestry interests. So over the past 4.5 odd years, there's been quite a bit of consistent information coming from them. And one of the main drivers with the Rural Advisory Panel has been to get a collaborative functioning between the council and the industry. And to me, that's absolutely critical to getting best practice outcomes and a pragmatic, common sense enabling from both parties. I am concerned that in this submission, we haven't done that work. And perhaps it should have been done. And I understand that there are some issues with the unitary plan with the forestry people. I also understand that some of the council's consenting criteria, from my own practice experience with forestry, is that it's expensive and it's problematic, and in many instances, in my personal view, it doesn't work. So I just think there's a piece of work here that needs to be done on a more collaborative basis with the industry to get a better result. Otherwise, it's just going to be fines, expense, time, and litigation for all the parties involved. So I'm not going to be supporting this just on principles. I don't think the work's been done in the manner in which this new council is operating, which is with collaboration and a joint-up approach to get a good outcome.
Thank you. Councillor Nye.
Thank you, Chair. I won't be supporting this either, and my main concern is, have we consulted with the many people who came around this table totally passionate against the GMO things? Have we at least consulted with them to get their input before we finalise anything? I think it would be crucial for us to do that. In the first term, on the ED committee, they fronted, and they were pretty strong about their views, and so strong that even I had to change my thinking about some of the things that they raised. And just to protect ourselves, I would say we should lay this on the table, make sure we get those people around the table and talk to them, and get an understanding, get everybody on the same direction before we move forward. That's all I can advise.
Thank you. Councillor Casey.
This is not relitigating our position. This is absolutely what we should not be doing today. We have a position. If that position needs to alter, it should be done through due process, not based on a submission that we're submitting to government, which is on our current position. How many times have I been given that lecture, right? So we don't actually need this debate. We just need to have the vote and put in our submission based on our current position.
Okay, well, I think it's clear that there's people around the table got various views on this. Some people support it, some people don't. I don't support it, like Councillor and I. Obviously we'll have a vote, and that'll determine what goes in the submission. Thank you. So, any other speakers? Councillor Walker and Councillor Darby.
Yeah. First of all, just in terms of timing, the submission has to be in by the 11th of August. So, whether we like it or not, we don't have any opportunity to consult or engage. It's the government's running that timetable, that's it. As far as GMOs are concerned, let's just deal with that issue separately. Our position is consistent with the unitary plan, it's consistent with the massive number of submissions that we received, it's consistent with our position as part of the Inter-Council Working Party, which is ourselves, Far North, Whangarei and others. And the whole purpose of that Inter-Council Working Party was to have a collaborative approach so that if there were issues around costs, and there have been in producing evidence or appeals or the like, we were combined. And GMOs, frankly, they don't know boundaries. We're totally bound up with certainly the balance of the North Island. And from a consultative and an engagement perspective, and that includes iwi, this thing's been consulted and engaged to death. So that goes to the GMO part of it, and I'd reiterate, it's consistent with our position around the unitary plan. And by the way, consistent with the plan changes that all those other councils are also putting through in sequence with ours. As far as the other matters are concerned, they're also consistent with our position around the unitary plan. And at some point, as much and all as I disagree with a lot of stuff in the unitary plan, I think our situation here is pretty pragmatic and well-reasoned. And if you read it, and I've certainly read it, I think everything makes sense.
Thank you. Councillor Darby.
I might just speak to the whole lot rather than just the amendment,
Okay.
and then we're done with it once. So I do strongly support the thrust of the submission and the detailing of the submission. I think the staff have raised some really very important points. And I want to reiterate that even if we hang our hat on the pork, we should also be hanging our hat on TP, what number was it?
223.
Can't remember that number.
33.
Which is a very recent document, 223. And a lot of collaborative work went into the formation of TP 223. A lot of collaborative work. And when we use the word collaborative, we need to be very cognizant of being collaborative. Using the word fully, it's not selective collaboration. It's actually collaboration with all the communities. Urban people have a great interest in the rural environment as well, and everything that might occur there. I know my weekends are spent often in the rural environment. My Monday to Friday is in the urban environment. This doesn't belong to just those that might live there, you know, because they swing a pine axe or a steel chainsaw. But just, I think there's some really good points around underlining TP 223. generally. The concerns about the changes in soil types is really important. Threatened species, Councillor Casey's covered that, but to limit it just to birds is a pretty myopic way of viewing the natural world, and I thank the staff for picking that up. And then just coming to this point about managing or having the ability, it's actually the council's, there's case law on this, and take note of that, and allowing councils the ability to manage the potential effects of something which is very, very new still, and there are high risks in the genetically modified tree stock plantings. Now, members, if you want to take that risk, just vote against this one, but the risk is huge. It is absolutely enormous, and if you have had the chance to read international literature on this, where they have advanced too quickly without controls, be they government or state or city controls, states, cities and countries have fallen on their noses and bloodied themselves very badly in this space. The clean-up cost is immense. It could potentially take decades, could take a century to get this wrong. So this is about allowing us, this council, to have some control in that area. I think this is all that it's about. That's what our PORP submission is about, is retaining some level of control. So I just urge you to support the position that was arrived at collaboratively in the drafting of the PORP submission. It's subject to submissions, and let it be tested there, but that is the council position, and I urge you just to reflect before you cast your vote here and back our established position, our confirmed position.
Thank you. Councillor Webster.
Yeah, I won't be supporting the submission. As usual, we've jumped to GMOs when actually we're talking about a submission on forestry. Well, that's what I thought it was on. Listening to the debate, you wouldn't think that. I think this could have been an opportunity to get together with the industry and maybe look at what we're doing at the moment. So I won't be supporting the submission.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to discuss the substantive issue here. The submission well reflects the council's official position. The council's position was arrived at after quite a lot of work, and I think it would be very unwise to now start reversing it. Can I, this is not in any way meant to be personal, but I did hear from Councillor Cashmore that he has expertise in the forestry business.
Experience. 8 experience in the forestry industry.
Experience. And I remind all the members of second page of our agenda, declaration of interest. Members are reminded of the need to be vigilant, to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between their role as a member and any private or other external interests they might have, and that may or may not apply, but I think it should be said. Now, there's a matter of a good process here, and we need to keep to it. Otherwise, we're going to have our chamber packed out again with angry members of the public and our email inboxes overloaded. So I would urge councillors to support the council policy and support the submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
Yeah, I won't be supporting. I don't see any discussion at all that we've consulted with Māori. The impact does not reflect Māori considerations. I think Māori are the largest single or largest forest owners in Auckland.
Yep.
And to have not even discussed it with them concerns me. And secondly, do I have a conflict of interest because I've got some forest as well? Well, I don't care. I won't be chopping them down in the next 10 years, so you know that's the time of the unitary plan, so I'm fine, I don't see a conflict there, thank you.
And Councillor Holtz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know this is a toughie, and I've got a lot of sympathy for the issues raised around here. However, this is not a relitigation of GMO or not GMO. This is just saying and picking up the issue around consultation with Māori. We've reached our position in the unitary plan with much consultation with Māori, much collaboration with Māori, and much agreement with Māori. This issue is just simply restating our position in the proposed unitary plan in relation to this issue. We do not need to have another full discussion on the forestry, with forestry owners and with the forestry groupings. They will be inputting into this in their own right. All we're doing is just lining up this submission with our current statement in the PORP. If this mediation continues within the hearings process on the unitary plan, the GMO issue will be discussed discreetly, and everyone will have their say yet again, and then possibly again, and then maybe even again. If our stance is forced into change on the GMO issue, then obviously that will carry on into here. All I'm saying and advocating for and still supporting strongly is that we worked with our community, with Māori, with everyone involved. We reached an agreement in the unitary plan on the status of GMOs. They are a prohibited activity status, and it should be reflected in this submission. Nothing more, nothing less.